told, every champion has felt it. Every president has felt it. Every king has felt it. Every lion has felt it. Every winner has felt it. Every soldier has felt it. Every victorious person has felt it. The urge to quit. Don't you give up on your dream. I don't care if you don't have the money, you don't have the help, and you don't have the family for it, and you don't have the background for it, and you don't have the friends for it. Don't you give up on your dream. Don't you do it. Don't you do it. Don't you do it.
In a world full of hunger, growing up on stomach pains, trying to make it over puddles and avoid the dirty stains of the streets where the rain drinks more than just your pain, and everything you have to lose is everything you have to gain. It's a battle for your mind, for your soul, for your time. Either stay down in the mud or jump back up, get on the grind, trying to catch up in a race when you started from behind. So removed from the lead that you can't even see the line. And the ones who say they love you, the same ones who hold their hand from extending you the kindness that you needed to withstand. The same ones walking blindly with contempt for fellow man. They don't lose a wink of sleep even when they leave you stranded. Fuck them all, just in tall, never mind if you fall. Every hustler takes a L, without those you can't ball. It's a dirty, dirty dance, roll the dice, take that chance. Gotta tighten up your pants to stay a victim of circumstance. Opportunity comes at a glance, get to stepping like a band. If it's school, rap and dance, it don't matter, get your band to the sky up if it takes that to help you feel fly. Who am I to tell you not to when I'd rather see you try? It's a blackout to America, so I'm forced to make these choices. Ramen noodles or the bills while others riding in Rolls Royce. And then claim to be their leaders, whole time ignore their voices. Time to pay us what you owe us, they are just your first invoice. I suggest you pay up quickly, we are not that good at waiting. We have been too fucking patient, US government is Satan. And the victory was ours, you can quit the time wasting and the stalling, cause it's time Babylon should get to falling. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I think by now we all know who the enemy is, right? And we all know who the enemy is, right? You know what I'm saying? Alright, so it's not a person working next to your job. Probably ain't the person that lives down the street from you. Not to say it ain't some weirdos in all these places that need to get addressed, need to get dealt with. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying, man. We got a unique situation with my kid, when your kid, when they look back at our generation, what they gonna see? What they gonna see? A whole bunch of coulda, woulda, shoulda ass motherfuckers? Or they gonna look back and say, hey, I'm on my daddy's part of that generation. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I come from that. One more thing I've got to mention, if you listen, I hope you listening. We cannot ignore our kitchen, cause it's full of dirty dishes. We need mothers to be mothers, so our children can be children. We need fathers to be fathers, lead them right and give them wisdom, so our dreams can be reality, not just a bunch of wishes. Whether Muslim, Jew, or Christian, don't just talk it, you should live it. So I'm asking you, what would you do if on you this depended? For our dreams to be reality, not just a bunch of wishes. Victory is ours.
Make sure my mic on. What's up, YouTube land? What y'all know good today, man? Shabbat Shalom to all my family out there. Beautiful, beautiful Shabbat today down here in Georgia. Perfect weather. If you don't know who I am, this your brother from another mother, sister, brother, or cousin, or somebody y'all know. This your homie Legit Hustle, man. And we back in the building today for another session of legit motivation. Today we're going to be talking about a topic that might not seem motivational in itself. We think about the word responsibility. But as we go through this presentation, I'm going to show some ways that in fact, responsibility is very, very key to our success, not just in business, but also in our personal lives. So as I was saying to a very, very dear friend of mine the other night, and this is one of those topics that regardless of what you do for a living, regardless of where you are in your life, personally, business-wise, professionally, whatever. This is a topic that I think is more than beneficial to take a close look at every stage of our lives. And that's responsibility. And we're going to talk about how becoming more responsible for the things in our lives actually help us to achieve more in our lives, right? So y'all know me. I don't do no bunch of talking. I don't got to do a whole bunch of fluff. We're going to go and get into it. But before we do, of course, I got to take a moment to give a special shout out to my client and friend, Yvette Nelson, over at New Freedom Financial here in Albany, Georgia. Again, like I say in my other lives, I don't just recommend them because they're personal friends of mine or she's a client of mine, but I really trust them. They're ethical people. They're not going to sell you any kind of fraudulent services. They're not going to overinflate what your possibilities are. They're going to keep everything nice and realistic for you. And again, because I primarily talk to business owners and self-employed people, you know that credit is very important, especially when you need to try to secure funding for your companies, for your growth. So with that being said, if you're one of those people and you're in need of these types of services, please check out my good friend Yvette Nelson at New Freedom Financial here in Albany, Georgia. Once again, the link to her website to get in touch with her will be in the description for this live stream, or you can contact her at the number on the screen, 229-435-9160. So, what is it about responsibility? You know, a lot of times when people think of responsibility, we tend to associate the word of responsibility with fault, right? Finding fault or placing blame. And that is not really what responsibility is about. Taking responsibility is actually about taking control, taking back the power in your own life. Again, whether it be personal or it be business. Being responsible is like a superpower. Research. I said research. I don't know what I'm thinking. Research actually shows that individuals who embrace personal responsibility experience profound improvements in areas like mental health, relationships, and their careers. So we're going to look at some of these areas where being more responsible can improve our lives and help us to achieve more in all of these areas. Especially this one, mental health. Now, I'm not talking about mental health in the sense of a person having a debilitating disorder or something that you really need professional help to help manage. Not that kind of mental health. But all of us, because we have brains and we have to think, and our thoughts form the basis of our decisions, all of us need to be aware of our mental health, how things impact us mentally, right? Studies show that people who accept responsibility for choices experience significantly lower levels of anxiety and depression. Now, for those of us who are in business for ourselves, who work for ourselves, if you're a parent, if you're someone who has a lot of responsibility on their shoulders, then you know the drain that having a lot on your shoulders can cause you mentally. That drain tends to lead to anxiety, and in some cases, depression, sometimes even very severe depression. So, learning to be more responsible in our lives can help improve our mental health, which will help us bear those responsibilities much better, regardless of what they may be, right? But why is that? So let's look at the psychology behind our mental well-being and the role that being responsible plays in our mental health. The first bullet point, control creates calm. You know, one of the things, if you've ever been around someone who was really, really controlling, do you know the source of a lot of control freaks, I like to call them? Have you ever dealt with a control freak? One of the sources that causes them to behave that way is actually fear, right? Fear of being taken advantage of, fear of being used, hurt, abused in some way. Well, when you take responsibility in your life for the decisions that you make, for the outcomes that you can, as far as you can, it takes away that feeling of helplessness. It helps to alleviate some of that fear and anxiety because you're taking the power away from people that you may not want to have that power. You don't want them to have that control in your life. When you're in control of your life, you can truly be calm. You can truly experience peace. You can be at a place of well-being, especially mentally. Not having to worry about what somebody else is going to do that you can't control and how it's going to impact you and your family and your loved ones. Another thing is a victim mindset. That term gets thrown around a lot, especially on YouTube. A lot of people complain or mention that people have a victim's mindset. And honestly, a lot of people do. Well, by accepting ownership, you remove, again, the external factors to the extent that you can. They're always going to be there, right? You have to deal with other people in your personal and business life. But whenever you can avoid looking at things from a victim's mindset, you're actually, again, removing the power to influence your life negatively out of the hands of external factors or people that you can't control. Right? So as opposed to having the mindset of a victim, you start to feel more in control of your life, of your circumstances. And that's the first bullet point pointed out. That helps create a calm mental well-being. Again, if you're someone who has a lot of responsibility in their life, be it business or personal, your mental well-being, your mind state, is extremely important. It determines how well you'll be able to perform any of the functions or duties that come along with those responsibilities. Not having a victim's mindset about things definitely makes you better. Makes you a better parent. It makes you a better spouse. It makes you a better friend. It makes you a better neighbor. It makes you a better boss. It makes you a better business owner. Because once again, you have taken control away from factors that you can't control, anything outside of yourself, and you put yourself in the driver's seat and you say, hey, this is up to me. I'm going to be the one that determines how this plays out. Right? But if you have a victim mindset, meaning you're constantly looking and seeing what someone else did and how their behaviors impacted your life or your circumstances, then you run the risk of developing a victim's mindset, right? Also, when your mental health is correct and balanced, then you can be more proactive in finding solutions. You know, life is life. As they say nowadays, life is going to be lifing, which means there's going to be challenges, there's going to be obstacles, there are going to be things that you have to face that maybe you did not create solely on your own, right? But when your mental health is balanced, when you have a mental state of calm and peace, then you're much better at thinking your way through these challenges, thinking your way through these obstacles, and being able to find working, proactive solutions. Why proactive? One of the worst things you could ever be in life or in business is to be reactive, right? You never want to be reactive in life. Being reactive is like backpedaling. If you find yourself, if you're in a fight or a situation, some form of combat, and you find yourself backpedaling, you are at a disadvantage because you're off balance. Well, being proactive is like taking the steps forward. In order to take a step forward, you have to be in total control of your body, of your motor skills and functions. Well, mentally, you don't want to be in a reactive state. You want to be proactive. That way, you can focus on what you can change and what you do have control over, versus just seeing all the negative and the problems and the things you may not necessarily be able to do anything about. And just so you guys know, I can see some people in the chat, but I had to rearrange my screens a little bit, so I can't see the chats at the very bottom. So as you all comment into the chat box as it comes up, I'll be able to see it a little better, and I'll make sure I comment on the things that you chat. Just so you know, I can see you guys. I can't exactly see who's in the chat, but I thank you for being here and kicking it with me today on this beautiful Saturday. But you never want to be reactive. You want to be proactive. And these are just 3 factors that contribute to our mental well-being. All of these are things that we can benefit from simply by being more responsible for our lives, for our circumstances, and for the things that happen around us and in our lives, right? And if you're a business owner, you know you're the end all be all when you're the boss. You have to be responsible for what goes on. Your team, your company, everybody, investors are depending on you to be a responsible person. Another thing about taking more responsibility in our lives is it builds your self-esteem. I tell you, not one story, this happened on multiple times, multiple occasions in my life. Have you ever been in a situation where someone said something to you, or they did something and you lost control? Maybe you stepped out of character. Maybe you did something that 9 times out of 10 any other time you would not have reacted that way. You would not have made that decision. The times in my life that I've done those types of things, I always felt bad afterwards, not necessarily for the decisions themselves, but the fact that I felt like I didn't have control. I wasn't in total control of myself. I never want to feel like someone else is controlling me, and I'm sure none of you do either. Well, when you take more responsibility for what happens in your life, you're actually improving your self-esteem because you're taking back ownership of your actions. The better you get at making the proper decisions, especially in stressful situations, you're actually proving to yourself that you're capable, right? Think about it. If you work for yourself, or you own a business, or maybe even if you're just a parent, not just a parent, that sounds bad. Even if you're a parent and maybe not a business owner, right? Think about what it felt like when you first became that. When it was your first child, there were so many things that you were unsure about. But over time, being responsible for that young life, you learned a lot about what you were actually capable of. Maybe you had to dig yourself out of a hole financially. Maybe you didn't have the best family circumstances yourself, and you just decided that was not going to be the case for your child. Every one of those seemingly small wins contributes to building your own confidence in you. And if you've seen any of my other content, if you know anything about my channel, one of the things that I really stress when I speak to people about business is that you got to believe in you, right? You got to have unshakable belief in yourself, in your abilities. And the more you do that, every time you make a decision that's the proper decision, you add to your own self-esteem. You are validating yourself. The more you can validate yourself internally, the less you need external approval, right? You don't need the social validation from social media so much because you know what you're about. You know what you're capable of. And that unshakable self-esteem is a power that you can claim all for yourself. And if you're serious about going into business, if you're serious about anything in life, you've got to be confident in your abilities to achieve whatever it is that you are seeking to achieve. Not the most confident person, take more responsibility in your life. You don't feel worthy because maybe you don't come from the best financial background or maybe the best family circumstances. Will take more responsibility in your life. You don't have to worry about fighting every little small battle. Just focus on you, because that is the only thing and the only person at the end of the day that you have total control over, right? So if you're not a very confident person, find ways that you can take more responsibility in your individual life. That helps add to your self-esteem and gives you that internal boost of confidence and validation that makes you unshakable. I've talked before in other presentations about this word, resilience, right? I did a presentation on persistence, I think about a week ago. Persistence and resilience are very closely related, right? You got to be persistent. You got to be able to keep pushing forward. It's persistence, continuation. Resilience, though, is a little bit different because resilience takes into consideration that you're going to stumble. You're going to fail. You're going to fall. You're going to have setbacks. Resilience is your ability to get back up, dust yourself off, shake it off, and keep it pushing because you're going to encounter roadblocks. It's just a part of life. In fact, can you imagine how weak you would be if you never had to face setbacks, if you never had to face challenges? Think of some of the childhood stars and celebrities that we've seen. You know, one of the things that often contributes to the problems some of them have later on in life is because they had such an easy going in their younger years, they never learned how to deal with failure. If you've ever met a person who was so spoiled they never got told no, what happens the first time they come up against something in life where it's just a firm no? You can't do it. A lot of times they end up in prison. They end up on drugs because they never had to deal with facing an obstacle that wasn't going to move. Resilience is the quality that helps you not only face obstacles, not only face challenges, but bounce back off of them. Come back from them. Don't let them cause you to totally fall, fail, and give up or quit. You have to be resilient, not just in life, but again, because this is legit hustle and we talk about business primarily over here. If you're serious about being in business for yourself, if you work for yourself, if you have other people that work for you that depend upon you, you have to be very resilient. You'll notice throughout this presentation, the imagery is that of a superhero. Most of the images in this presentation are going to be fictional superhero characters, right? The reason why I really like the imagery in this presentation is because, again, we don't typically think about being responsible as being something powerful, but it is. The more responsibility you take for yourself, for your life, for your financial situation, for your family circumstances, the more you're able to benefit from having better self-esteem, from being more confident, from having better mental health, being more resilient, so that when you do face challenges, when you do face obstacles, you're stronger than the problem. You're stronger than the roadblock. And to me personally, I think that's kind of like a superhuman quality, right? You think about a superhero, most of them have some kind of weakness. Superman has kryptonite. Batman has Catwoman, probably. I don't know what Batman's weakness is. But everybody has a bit of a weakness, right? Well, think about it. By taking more responsibility, you become a superhero. That doesn't mean you won't have weaknesses. It don't mean you won't have times that you question yourself or you doubt yourself. But you'll be much better at bouncing back from any of those challenges because you'll be much more resilient, because you know at the end of the day, this is going to turn out how you choose for it to turn out, because you've already taken responsibility for the outcome. So it doesn't matter what you come up against. You've already taken on that responsibility and said, hey, I'm responsible for this. So however it ends, at the end of the day, it's my choice. It's your choice. And that helps you become more resilient in what you're doing. All right? Again, we talked about being proactive when it came to finding solutions to challenges in life. When you're resilient, it helps you to focus on the solution. So not only are you not being reactionary, but because you're used to taking some bumps and bruises, you already knew you was going to fall down on the path. You knew that when you tried to climb that mountain, you was probably going to skin your knee or maybe even break a bone, whatever the challenge may be. But because you had already determined that you were going to do it, no matter what, you took responsibility for the outcome. Because of that, your mind naturally goes away from looking for blame or looking for ways to not be responsible and starts to focus on, how do I solve this problem, because I am responsible. There is no one else. Any of these things that happen, I am responsible. That focus on solutions is part of what adds to your resilience. It helps you not become so overwhelmed by the problems, by the challenges themselves, but rather allows you to just focus on solving the problem. Also, your mental strength. Going back to the very first slide, remember? Trying to make sure this thing quit skipping like this. But going back to that very first slide, it was about your mental health and your mental well-being. All right? Give me 1 second. Let me check this, y'all. Another thing, resilience helps you turn setbacks into wins. You know, there's a saying that as long as you learn from a situation, you never lose. When you take more responsibility for outcomes in your life, you start to see failures as learning opportunities. A setback doesn't just become a setback. A setback doesn't become a failure. A setback becomes, hey, what am I supposed to be learning from this? What is it that I'm supposed to learn in order to overcome this hurdle, this setback, especially whenever you're dealing with repetitive obstacles? If you have something that keeps rearing its head, if you find yourself having to deal with the same challenges on a repeated basis, on a recurring basis, odds are you didn't learn something from it, right? Well, how do you turn a failure into a learning opportunity? Simple. You take responsibility. Don't blame someone else, even if they had a role in it. Even if they did something that really was unexpected, maybe it complicated things for you. Doesn't say, I'm not saying to absolve people of their responsibilities, but the more responsibility you can take from every situation, whether it's a failure or you deem it a success, you take responsibility, which you turn a failure into a learning opportunity. A setback becomes a step for a comeback. A setback becomes an action plan for your next step forward, right? As opposed to something that cripples you and debilitates you and stops you from being able to move forward on your goals. Also, stronger relationships. Now, again, my channel is primarily about business and working for yourself and things like that. Well, none of that matters if you don't have loved ones in your life, right? At the end of the day, our lives are much more than a sum of our bank accounts or our net worth. More important, in my opinion, than any of our financial status or anything that we can accumulate in the form of material gain in this world is the strength of our relationships, right? How do your family feel about you? How do your close friends feel about you? When I'm gone, what are my friends gonna say about Mike? Right? To me, that means more than what someone may say Mike achieved in his life, or he was able to accumulate in his life. Well, if you want better relationships, be more responsible for them. Be more responsible for the things that happen in your relationship. As they say, it takes two to tango. Odds are everything, every hiccup, every bumpy road that comes up in your relationship is usually not the doing of just one person. Both people played a role in it. One may be more, one may be less, one may be right, one may be wrong. But the way relationships function, they're dependent on each other, right? So whenever we can take accountability and be more responsible for our actions day to day, the more likely it is that the people that we have close personal relationships with will enjoy those relationships with us, right? Those relationships can be more intimate. Trust is key in any relationship, be it business or personal. As the diagram says, trust is the currency of relationships. Well, by being accountable, that is how you earn a person's trust. Have you ever been in a situation or a relationship with someone where no matter what happened, you were always to blame? I have. If you've ever been in a relationship with a person that blames you for everything, including their own actions and decisions, there's no way you can ever feel close to that person. There's no intimacy there. You can't ever feel safe with that person because no matter what they do, it's going to be your fault, right? So the inability of a person to be responsible for their actions will actually sabotage a relationship. Whereas when you learn to be more responsible for the things that go on in that relationship, that is how you build trust. When a person knows that you're going to be consistent, hey, Mike does this. There are things that can come along no matter what somebody else says. People that know me will tell you automatically, nah, I don't know about that. That don't sound like Mike. It should be that way for all of us in all of our relationships. That way people know that they can trust you. They know you're honest. They know you're reliable. Well, that type of trust can only come from being responsible for yourself. If my mate cheats on me, what they got to do with me cheating? She can go do whatever she decides to do. She grown. I am not responsible for her decisions, but what I am responsible for is my decisions. It's my character at stake. Were I to react to something someone else did in a relationship and think, oh, because they were untrustworthy, now I'm gonna go be untrustworthy? Not only is it immature, but that is the opposite of being responsible for yourself. You want a deeper connection with someone? Be accountable. Be responsible. You know, for us as men, especially in relationships, it can be very hard to be vulnerable. And for a lot of ladies too. You know, we live in a rough world, and we think of being vulnerable as being open to being hurt. Because when you're vulnerable, you can be hurt. But when you're dealing with someone who is not only responsible, but authentic enough, trustworthy enough, honest enough, that they can be vulnerable with you, that is where those really deep connections come from. One of the things for me as a man, just being honest with you, I love knowing that I can lay my head on my woman's shoulder and let some tears flow if I need to. Life gets rough. Life gets rough for everybody. No one is made out of vibranium. Right? Things impact us. Things hurt us from time to time in our life. If you're not able to be vulnerable with someone, male or female, you're going to sabotage and destroy your ability to have any kind of deep, meaningful connection with that person. But you can't be vulnerable with anyone, and no one's going to be comfortable being vulnerable with you when you can't take responsibility for your actions, for your behavior, for the things that are happening around you. Another thing, conflict, arguing, disagreements destroy a relationship regardless of its personal or business. A person who comes along and takes responsibility for things will quickly kill an argument. It's kind of hard for a person to keep fussing at you about something when you've already acquiesced and said, you know what, you're right. I was wrong. I should have done it this way. That was my failure. I didn't make the right decision. That ability to apologize sincerely when we make mistakes, because we're going to make them, it will kill a conflict. A lot of times, that's all a person really wants from you, is for you to take responsibility for something you did that may have hurt them or compromised the relationship or compromised the business. But if you refuse to take responsibility for your decisions and your actions, you can't do that. Conflicts will tend to last way longer than they need to and do way more damage than necessary. So you want better relationships? You want a better relationship with your mate? You want a better relationship with your co-workers? With your staff? Then be more responsible. Now, another thing, again, this is legit motivation, or the motivation segment on my channel. So motivation is a key factor for people like me. When you work for yourself, you have other people depending on you because you're the business owner. Anybody in that situation will tell you, you don't always feel motivated. You don't always feel capable, right? Things outside your control happen and they affect you in a way that you start to doubt yourself. You'll start to question yourself. You won't run as fast as you did in the beginning because now you're questioning whether you can finish the race. You need some motivation? Be more responsible. It works like this. When you don't have anyone else to blame for things, you don't waste energy on things you can't control. At the end of the day, the only thing, again, that you or I can control totally is ourselves. It doesn't matter if it's only 5% of your energy. If you're wasting 5% of your energy complaining about something that you had no control over to begin with, you're just wasting energy. And when you work for yourself, or you're in a situation where you need to be motivated, maybe you're on a sales team, or maybe you sell things for yourself, you don't have 5% of your energy to spare wasting on things you can't control. It's a total waste of energy. Instead of wasting that energy, being responsible allows you to take that focus and move it inward, where you do have control, where you do have say-so, where you can control what's said, done, who does what, with yourself. The more of that energy that you can channel toward yourself, the better you'll get at creating the results that you actually want. Last week's motivational discussion was about persistence. When you're responsible, it's very hard for something to get you to quit. For example, in business, I'll tell you, for me personally, and I'm sure it's probably this way for many other entrepreneurs and business owners, one of my biggest fears is failure. There's a saying that the fear of failure is greater than the fear of success. Might sound a little counterintuitive, but yes, there is fear and apprehension that comes with success, but the fear of failure is much greater than that. I cannot stand the thought of when the day comes for me to transition and leave this place and move on to whatever else comes after this existence. I can't stand the thought of leaving here a failure. Right? That's one of my greatest fears in life, is that I will only be a person who tried. And I would still rather be a person who tried as opposed to a person who didn't even try. But the thought of failing at something, when you take responsibility for what goes on in your life, for what goes on in your relationships, you don't want to fail at it because you're responsible for it. It's going to hurt. You're going to feel guilty, and you should, because you're responsible for it. But as opposed to that bringing you down, that responsibility actually is what helps to add to your ability to be persistent, to be resilient, to not quit when things get tough, whether it's your marriage or your business, whether it's your children or your friends. When you become responsible for things, do you want to be the failure? Do you want to be the reason the company collapsed? Do you want to be the reason the marriage failed? Then be more responsible. That'll help motivate you to push through those tough times as opposed to turning tail and running, which is what irresponsible people do. It'll help you achieve your goals. Again, because you don't want to fail, because you're taking responsibility and now you're more persistent, isn't it natural that you're more likely to actually achieve your goals because you don't give up on them? You know, one of my lessons in my life has been sometimes the test is not whether you can achieve a goal, because you can achieve it. If you believe it, you can achieve it. Especially if you can visualize it, you can achieve it. But sometimes the greater test is just to see how much you can take before you give up. Are you going to break? Or are you going to cross that finish line and break that tape because you achieved that goal. Think about this. When you're lifting weights, you want to get stronger or you want to increase your stamina, you have to give yourself resistance. Resistance is what builds strength. Resistance is what builds stamina. So the resistance that you overcome by being persistent, by being resilient, are the things that make achieving your goals even possible to begin with. And all of this is based on you learning to be more responsible for yourself, more responsible for what happens in your life. You don't like being poor? Do something about it. Don't complain about what they pay you at your job. You fix it. You don't like where your relationship is going? You don't like the way your marriage is going? Don't complain about your mate. You fix it. You right there with them, ain't you? What makes them more responsible for what's going on than you? That's that blame game thing that we were talking about earlier. And that legit hustle, we don't do that. I'm never going to advocate for that. I advocate for people being responsible. You do what you can do, because that's all you can do. Don't waste no time complaining about what somebody else did or didn't do. If this person had did that, no, you fix it. You overcome that thing. You become more persistent. You achieve that goal. And then you become more confident in your ability to continue doing it, because you didn't put it off on somebody else. You took responsibility for its success or failure. Right? That makes sense? So being responsible is really a superpower. When you have to face the challenges, you don't have the luxury, I'll say, of blaming somebody else for what goes on in your business. You can't blame your mate for everything that goes on in your relationship. Guess what else it does? It forces you to get better at problem solving. It forces you to get better at being proactive in your thinking, for looking for solutions actively, instead of sitting back waiting for somebody else to fix it, or instead of wasting energy blaming that person for the outcome. Your mind starts to constantly go into, well, how do I solve this problem? Yep, I know Tim goofed up on the report he was supposed to do, but this is my company, this is my team. We won't fail because of what someone else does, so you have to fix the problem. You don't like what's going on in your relationship? Well, what's the problem? Can you solve it? How do you solve it? You won't ask yourself any of those questions if you're constantly blaming someone else, right? When you learn to develop your problem-solving ability through being responsible, it helps you anticipate things before they arise. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to develop one solution. It may be only one that works. It may be only one that is the best one. But 9 times out of 10, you're going to come up with multiple solutions to a problem. Isn't that a beneficial thing when you have problems to solve? Because again, this isn't a hypothetical. This is life. There will be problems. There will be challenges. The resistance is what makes you strong. But you can't move the resistance if you can't solve the problems. So you want to get better at solving the problems in your life? Be more responsible for the things that happen in your life. Financial stability. This is key, especially for my channel, because I primarily look to speak to people who are trying to achieve things in business, right? I want to always make sure that anyone could benefit from the things that I talk about in my presentations. but I'm primarily talking to those of us who have chose to be entrepreneurs, who have chose to be business owners. And the one thing that all of us who choose that path know is financial instability. Most people think that being in business for yourself is a surefire way to not have financial problems. That is not true. That could not be further from the truth. Anybody that has been involved in business or working for themselves know there are times you're going to be far more unstable financially than a person who has a W-2 9-to-5 job. Because there are things that affect us financially that we have no say-so over. I can't control the stock market. I'm not in the White House. I don't decide what country gets tariffs or not and how much. There are a lot of things that affect your finances that you have no personal influence in. So what do? You become more responsible for your personal financial circumstances. You don't like the instability you're experiencing? Fix the problem. You don't like the revenue problems that your company is facing? Fix the problem. Solve the problem. Especially when you have investors and employees and other people that are depending on you. You have to solve the problems. And financial instability is a major one. How many companies go out of business that are having record profits? When's the last time you heard of that? I don't remember any company that goes out of business behind record profits. But once that financial instability comes into play, then the well-being of the whole company is at stake. What's one of the major reasons that couples get divorced? Money problems, financial instability. You don't like where you and your husband or you and your wife are at financially? You do something about it. Fix it. Financial stability comes from being responsible. You don't think you're going to have enough money to retire? You fix it. Don't complain about the company's 401k. Don't complain about the laws that got passed that you didn't have no say-so in anyway. When's the last time a lawmaker came and asked you what you thought was a good idea to do? I would go so far as to say they never gonna do it. So rather than waiting for someone else to better your circumstances financially, you take responsibility for it. You do it. And again, when you do that, you get the benefit of all those other things. You get the improved self-esteem. Nothing makes you feel more capable financially than when you dig yourself out of a hole. Have you ever had to file bankruptcy? I did. In my mid-20s, I had to file bankruptcy. I made that many poor decisions financially. But it felt so good still in my mid to late 20s, to be able to dig myself out of that hole and be able to buy a new car again, be able to get credit cards again. I haven't bought a house yet, but I'm looking forward to the day I get to buy my first home. Nothing quite gives you a boost in your self-esteem and your confidence when it comes to your financial capabilities like overcoming an obstacle. But you can't overcome those financial obstacles if you're blaming everybody else for them. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. So there's a shift that needs to come with your mindset about being responsible. I was finna say, ladies, this is for y'all, but I'm not gonna do that. My channel's new. I need to make all the friends I can. I don't need to get fussed at quite yet. But women tend to be a little more associated with spending, right? But it can be true of anybody. So when you need to change your mindset about your finances to become more responsible, you have to become more conscious of your spending. Most times, it is not how much you make that determines what your financial circumstances are. It is your spending habits that determine. You could buy $20 on some weed, or you could add that $20 to a brokerage account. Something that's going to pay you back in the future. It's going to build upon itself, right? So your spending habits, those are things that you control. Consistent saving. You determine when and how much you save. You don't make enough to save? Do something about it. It's your responsibility. Take responsibility for it till you get to the place that you can save consistently. And the slide says debt avoidance, but I'm gonna amend it a little bit here, because I think more important than avoiding debt is learning how to manage debt, right? So maybe here, instead of debt avoidance, I should have put debt management, because debt isn't necessarily bad. There's good debt and bad debt. But you need to learn how to manage debt, right? These are skills and things that you can develop. They aren't dependent on your spending, your saving, and the debt that you take on are all your responsibility. So you want to do better financially? You want better financial circumstances? Then take more responsibility for your financial life. Let's talk about career for a second. Now again, at Legit Hustle, I primarily push the concept of working for yourself, getting it on your own. I even got a whole song called Get It On Your Own, right? But everybody who watches my content might not be in that situation right now. They might be happy in their career. So if you want to grow your career, do you realize that learning to be more responsible is almost a surefire way to guarantee that you advance your career? What employer wants somebody who avoids responsibility, who does not take accountability, who blames everybody else for the failures of the team other than themselves? Nobody. And nobody wants to work with a person like that. But when you become the most responsible person on your team, guess what that makes you? Then you become the leader. You become the leader. The person who takes responsibility is the leader. Right? The foundation of leadership is accountability. Can you take accountability? Can you take accountability? Can you take responsibility for what goes on? Whether it's your team, whether it's your company, your department, can you take responsibility for what happens there? The better you get at being accountable for those things, the more others around you will look at you as the leader, because guess what? You will be the leader. You're functioning as the leader by doing that. You get better at solving problems. Who doesn't want to be on a team with somebody who solves problems? You don't have to wait for the supervisor to fix it. When you're the person on the team that everybody knows can solve problems, guess what? Not only do you become the leader, you also become irreplaceable. You become the go-to person when they come across a challenge or a problem. That means they trust you, right? When your team trusts you, when management trusts you, when ownership trusts you, who you think's more likely to get promoted at that point? You or someone that they don't trust, that doesn't solve problems, and is no kind of leader? Leadership, problem solving, and trust are all based on responsibility, being accountable. You want to advance your career? Be more responsible. Surefire way to get the attention of the people who can decide when and where you get promoted to. I hope everybody's kind of getting a sense of this. Responsibility really is a superpower, right? It also helps you with your health. America has an obesity problem. We know that. Personally, I think it's because they've spent so much time feeding us bullshit and garbage, and healthy foods are so expensive, that has made it an environment where now the average American is overweight, right? In our community as quote unquote black people, or FBA, diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure. These are things that are rampant, high cholesterol, that are rampant in our communities. Well, you want better health? What's the surefire way to ensure that you have better physical health? I can't blame McDonald's for my health if I eat there 5 times a week, can I? I can't blame Taco Bell for being overweight if I never go walking, I never do anything physical, I don't go to the gym, I don't have any kind of regular physical maintenance, I don't go to a doctor for regular checkups. There's no one else that's responsible for our physical health other than us. When you become more responsible, your physical well-being becomes a part of that responsibility. There's no one else to blame. Unless ultimately, when you get to the place that you learn to take more responsibility for your life, for the things that happen in your life, you get to a place of true freedom. Why? Because you're in more control. You not only do you feel like you're more in control, but you actually are in more control of your life. And with that control over your own destiny, your own well-being, your mental health, your physical health, your ability to advance your career, your ability to grow your business, your ability to be a better mom, a better dad, a better child, a better grandparent, a better neighbor, a better friend. That's where freedom comes from. That freedom of knowing, not only am I adequate, but I'm damn good at it. Not only does my mate love me, but my mate trusts me because they know they can. Not only does my employer like me, my employer values me. I benefit them. My career is advancing, all because you started taking more responsibility. No, I won't say no. There's always some, but much less external control, much more internal control. There's a freedom that comes with that. Claiming your own power. Being less subject to the doings and the will of other people. Being able to exert your will on your circumstances in your life is true power. But as long as you're the victim in your own mind, you can't do that either. You want your life to be better? You want less influence from outside places? You have to take control. And the way you take control of your life is you take responsibility for the things that happen in your life. Be it good, be it bad. Be it personal, be it business. If it's financial, if it's at the job, whatever that you can control in your life that is in your hands, that you have the means and the ability to have the greatest impact on, that is what it is your duty to take responsibility for. It is your duty to claim that. Because if we don't take control of our lives, if we don't take responsibility for our lives, someone will. And then you'll actually really be a victim. Right? So avoid the victim mind state. Decide today. Maybe while you're watching this. Find one way. Hey, I'm going to be more responsible as a husband. I'm going to be more responsible as a wife. I'm going to be more responsible as an employee. You know what I think I need to be more responsible as a business owner. You know what? I think I need to be more responsible as a neighbor. I don't really like the way the neighborhood been looking. So, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to pick the trash up today. I'm going to be more responsible. Find one way. Doesn't have to be in everything in your life. Find one way to be more responsible. Start today and watch how much more you can achieve in your life. Y'all feel me? You enjoyed it? We kicked it. We hung out for a minute. Where we at time-wise? Oh, all right. A little bit over an hour. Okay. I'm about on track. So I hope y'all enjoyed this presentation. In the next few weeks, I don't know exactly when, but hopefully in the next coming weeks, I'm going to actually start making the slides available from my presentation. So I'll probably have to go back on the ones that I've already recorded and add the links into the descriptions. But in the coming weeks, when I start having these type of discussions, especially on the motivational series and some of the business topics on Sundays, I'm going to actually make the slide presentations available for you guys if you want them. You just have to click a link and then you'll be able to go check the slides out, go through it, take notes, or if you like the particular point that was in the presentation, I'll make sure that everybody on my channel always has access to the information that I present, right? So I hope you got some value from this discussion. I'm getting more comfortable with this live streaming thing. I'm starting to actually kind of enjoy it a little bit. I don't really like doing pre-recorded content because of editing. I hate having to edit stuff. But when I first started live streaming, I was kind of nervous about whether I would be able to have a good enough flow that I could maintain and keep people's attention throughout a presentation for an hour or so. I got a background in public speaking. I have done public speaking, but it's a bit different of an approach to this. There are some things that are similar, but there are some differences. But I'm getting more comfortable. So I appreciate everybody for tuning in. As I say, every time I do one of these, I am supremely grateful for you, for anybody that watches this. If you're watching it with me live, if you're checking this out at a later date and you make it all the way to this point, I am supremely grateful to you because you are helping me to live my dreams, whether you know it or not, whether you've ever bought anything from me, whether you've ever spent any money with my company or done anything financially. Just you being here is a major factor in me being able to do something that I have dreamed of since I was a little boy, which was to be the entrepreneur that I am becoming today. So I thank you for tuning in. I thank y'all for kicking it with me. And let's see what we're going to close out the show with. Let's close out the show with... what song we got? We'll do that. We're going to close out the show with my song, On Your Own, man. This goes out to everybody out there getting it on their own, man. All right? Thank you again for tuning in. It's been your homie, your brother from another mother, sister, cousin, or brother, Mr. Legit Hustle. Y'all know my saying, man. Hustle smarter. Yo, yeah.
Rest in peace, nigga.
Yo, man, this one goes out to everybody out there getting it on their own. You know what I'm saying? However you getting paid, however you paying your bills, hopefully it's legit. You know what I'm saying? But even if it ain't, do the best you can, you know what I'm saying? And get it on your own. Yeah, West Coast, slow motion. Waking up the morning views of the ocean, freshen up your swag, roll up your neck back, 40 on your hip, dip to the west side. Between the trees and the breeze is where you reside. You let the 6-4 dip slow, side to side. The good life, no longer stressing on that hood stripe. Your kids best, you can't fetch, they doing all right. On top of that, today you rhyme with your lady. Yep, that's your baby, play with her, they must be crazy. Had the hood going crazy when them shop doors open. Fine cuts in the city, that's what you been promoting. And plus it's clear to see that every real G is positive to their community. Productivity, that's the slogan. Pushing back on the forces trying to stop us from growing. They can't hold it back. When the door of opportunity opens up for you like a Cadillac, you ain't having that. You came too far to try and travel back. And plus that's way too whack. So when the plans stay rolling and the dope keep folding while your life unfolding, then you keep going. Never mind the haters, can't make or break you. Where the hustle take you when your faith don't forsake you. Yeah, it feels good when you getting it on your own. Pushing fly wheels, putting families in fly home. But you gotta stay strong when you're walking on your own and turn BS and rare when life ends you stones. It feels good when you getting it on your own. Pushing fly wheels, putting families in fly home. But you gotta stay strong when you walking on your own and turn BS and rare when life ends you stones. But don't expect it to be easy breezy. Besides being cheesy, it's slightly greasy like an Eskimo trying to sell your bro that though he love the pole, his ass still ain't free. The truth is you take the good with the bad. If it's worth it, then on purpose it ain't easy to be had. But don't let it stop you, cause unless they pop you, then you gotta know the wind's already in the bag. It takes thick skin to walk amongst men that don't comprehend the grind that you're living in. Unfortunately, it usually proves to be negativity from friends and your family. But when you focus, you can't get caught slipping. You cool ranch while you living. Fly with eagles, not chickens, and you're bound to see between you and me that there's no enemies. And yes, success is proof. Me, I'm still noodle flowing in the booth. If you need more proof, go and check me mirror. Cause it couldn't be clearer that you're bound for the top. So stay on your grind and don't you dare ever stop it. With roadblocks, act like mad cops. It only means you're just a mirror, homie, just watch. Ain't no need to be silent when you're made of iron. And for winners like you, there's no such thing as trying. It feels good when you're getting it on your own. Pushing fly wheels, putting families in fly homes. But you gotta stay strong when you're walking on your own and turn BS to bread when life gives you stones. It feels good when you're getting it on your own. Pushing fly wheels, putting families in fly homes. But you gotta stay strong when you're walking on your own and turn BS to bread when life gives you stones. And there you have it. You know what I'm saying? This goes out to everybody out there getting it on their own. Like I said, you over there, feel me? With the fade, all the barbershops, hair salons, nail salons, massage parlors, dentist office, you feel me? Soul food restaurants, whatever you do, man. If you work for yourself, it's your anthem right here, man. It's my salute to you. I see you getting it on your own. And if you employ other people, you're a real life hero. You know what I'm saying? Salute. Yeah. Keep getting it on your own.
Omni.